What if you could see the future? What if the key to unlocking your career's potential was written in the stars? This week, we are diving into something completely different, something that might make you raise your eyebrows. The world is changing, and the cosmos could be giving us clues about what's next. Welcome to PhD with Woman on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack Delivered will be by our guest, Susan Gill. Topic: Reading the Future from the Stars, Technology and the Rise of New Power. Episode 173 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women leaders, technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle. And because empathy is my motto, and empathy is critical when you're reading the future from the stars. First, let me remind you what's been happening in our community. Hooray to Maureen Josephine, and she will organize the Women Tech Summit Kenya on November 21st, 22nd through Tambua Women in Tech. Kudos, Maureen. Let's make magic happen. Cheers to our former PhD guest, Elizabeth Naumowski, for being a keynote speaker at the Modern Storytellers event on March 6th. The Modern Storytellers event is organized by the Women's Connection and is benefiting the Gatehouse, an organization supporting survivors of childhood sexual assault. Elizabeth, your journey in financial literacy and empowerment continues to inspire. Keep using your voice to educate, uplift, and spark meaningful change. Now let's go back to our topic. In this episode of PhD, financial astrologer Susan Abbott-Giddel, a former commodity futures expert turned leading voice in financial astrology, will break down what this transition means for careers, investment, and businesses. She'll share how to align your path with the forces shaping the next century, ensuring that you're not just keeping up, but leading the way. Susan, where are you joining us from today?
Well, good morning. It is morning where I am in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States, and not surprising given that I spent my day job career in the commodity futures business that I ended up in Chicago. So nice to see you and nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Stars in Chicago are shining brightly as well as we already have evening in Torun, the birthplace of Nicolaus Copernicus, and what could be a better location than this great location where this famous astronomer was born. Thanks to Isaac Newton, we now better understand how celestial bodies follow a mathematical trajectory. But have we gotten any closer to understanding how the stars can predict day-to-day events in our lives?
Well, I think we can if we pay attention, and if you know how the planets are moving in relationship to your own chart in particular. Yes, but even in the mundane world, which is astrologer speak for the world, things that just happen in the news that you see on streaming or on TV or wherever you catch where you get informed. I think it's pretty easy to see what is happening around the world based on what is happening with the planets, because we're all affected by that.
Not knowing though how, right?
Well, yeah, and that's really the key to how the mundane astrology works, basically, is that everybody in the world is being affected in some way by how the planets are connecting to one another, and then most of us use that energy in an unconscious kind of way. And so it more typically reflects the energy between the two planets and what they're trying to say to each other. But if you know what they're saying, you can put that information into use in a conscious, productive way.
So it's 2024. We had some talks with our speakers already. We talked about the female empowerment. We talked about the fact that imposter syndrome is real, and all these obstacles that are paving the way towards leadership. So there must be some positive future for us. We see the shift of female empowerment movement, and I'm sure you're gonna spill the bean a little bit further. But before we go into the details, Susan, you've gone from the high pressure world of commodity futures to interpreting the language of the stars. That's quite a transition. So what was that aha moment, that pivotal turning point that made you realize that astrology held the keys to understanding the financial world, the future?
Well, there were two in particular. When I started my career, I was a journalist at a trade magazine called Futures Magazine. I had the opportunity to interview a couple of the pioneering financial astrologers at the time. And I always thought that was kind of interesting because I had always been kind of interested in astrology. And so that kind of put the bug in my ear. And then later on, after I moved to Chicago, long story, but I started seeing an astrologer here to help with basically business questions that I had and career questions. And at one point she said, Pluto is crossing your ascendant, and that's a big deal. And if there's anything that you've ever been really interested in studying more, learning more about, now would be a great time to do that. And so that was when I went to my first astrology conference, and mind blown in terms of how refreshed I felt, even though it was really intense mental work. And I thought, no, I could do this. And I could apply it to what I already know about, which is the markets. So it was a real shift. And that's probably been 20 years ago now, that my astrologer encouraged me to do that. And I probably wouldn't have done it without some hands-on astrological support that said, now's the time. So that was a big one.
So that was like the stars aligning, two energies to come together and really inspire you to go into that field, was it?
Yeah. And for a while, I, you just kind of do it on the side and you're kind of more interested in it. And then I went to another conference a few years later and heard the president of the sponsoring organization speak. And it dawned on me that, she has a day job and does astrology kind of on the side or in combination with what she does for a living, and is president of this international organization. I thought you had to quit your day job to be an astrologer. And so that was another kind of eye-opening thing. And that's when I started really studying formally and with intent to eventually put the two of them together professionally.
Well, let's address the elephant in the room, because financial astrology for many is not really a science per se. How do you respond to the skeptics, those who say, Susan, how can we trust our financial future to the movement of planets?
Well, I've done a lot of research on how the Dow Jones Industrial Average moves in connection with a 45-year cycle between Saturn and Uranus, two of the main economic planets. And it's uncanny when you look at the research since 1896. We're nearing the end of the third cycle since then, which clearly is not enough for like empirical statistical relevance, but certainly on just checking it out, dates about what the market was doing about versus dates that Saturn and Uranus were making certain aspects in the sky, they're pretty similar. So I'm kind of on board with that.
So astrology is often seen as abstract, but as you say, there are cycles and there is data. Can you point to any specific measurable success or predictions where financial astrology has proven accurate?
Probably the most easily recognized is the very beginning of COVID in January, February 2020. This is when Saturn, Pluto, the Sun were all together, and Jupiter were all together in the sign of Capricorn. And that suggested a real lockdown in terms of the economy, of expansion of any kind. And, Pluto in Capricorn was about, it has just left it, but from 2008 to late last year, Pluto in Capricorn has been on a mission to transform business and government worldwide. And Saturn moving into conjunction with Pluto in January of 2020 was like the sign that said, okay, get to work. We've got to do this now. How are we going to transform business and government? And certainly, I think one of the big things to come out of COVID is the transformation of how we work now. We're on a video call that was kind of not much in use 5 years ago, and now it's pretty common. Working from home is certainly feasible, if not preferable. And I think that's a structural shift in how we move forward.
And so question would be, what is the prediction? When is this kind of shift going to happen again, like we experienced during lockdown?
Well, there's a big shift coming in summer of 2026 when there's going to be 5 if you include Jupiter. Or is it 4? No. Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus are all going to change signs in 2026 within the same year. So is Jupiter, and Pluto has already done that recently, just as of November of 2024. And those, they're called outer planets because they're far out away from the Earth. And we can see Jupiter and Saturn with the naked eye, but we can't see Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But those planets it's rare that they all change zodiac signs in a short period together. In fact, in summer of 26, when they do that, it will be only the 5th time, 5, since I checked back to 1761. And it will be the first time that this connection of several outer planets changing signs close together has occurred since the mid-1950s. And so you can imagine that there are big changes that occur when these outer planets that have influence, because their transits through the sky, their travels through the sky around the sun are very long. They have long-term impact on the entire world. And really interesting, I think, is that besides the planets changing signs, they will be in connection with one another in a favorable way. That a French astrologer, André Barbeau, wrote about in 2014 in his book. And let me find it here. Here it is. Pluto and Uranus will be trine, which means they're 120 degrees apart, and that's a very easy connection. They support each other easily. Saturn and Neptune will be together in Aries, right close together like this. And Saturn and Neptune will be sextiling, which is a 60-degree aspect, and also pleasant and easy to both Uranus and Pluto. And André Barbeau wrote in 2014 in his book, Planetary Cycles, that he considered this connection between these four planets the most, quote, the most benefic configuration of the century. And its interplanetary partnership will work for the best in a splendid relaunch of civilization. So that's a big statement to say that in summer of 2026, we're going to have planets connecting in the sky in the most beneficial way for the entire 21st century. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to newfound inspiration. And their connections are about being supportive, innovative, technologically advanced, yet compassionate. So I think it will be the flavor that we see coming in summer of 2026 could be profound.
Excellent. Something positive each day. We have a comment from Kenton who says, hello. Hello, Kenton. If you have any question to Susan, feel free to ask. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about what's happening in the world of technology, female entrepreneurship. And you talk about aligning careers with cosmic forces, Susan. Mm-hmm. So in practical terms, how should someone in, say, tech or finance use astrology to make better career decision? Does it mean that, for example, well, it's not really good to change jobs at the moment because I can read it from the stars? Do we just give in and not make that big leap of faith because the stars are telling us not to? Or do we go for that job offer?
Well, that depends on your individual chart, really more than anything else. But I'm thrilled to be speaking to your community because they are already aligned with what I see is important in the economy and the world, and that is that the planets have just recently moved into what I call the air economy. Jupiter and Saturn are two of the main economic-oriented planets, and they are close enough to us to make connections in a cycle of 20 years. And so Jupiter expands, Saturn contracts, and so they have influence on the economy, and that is, that we're able to see and observe and live through. Unlike the outer planets that have big, long shifts that can take decades or more. But Jupiter and Saturn I think it's the biggest transit of the century when they were conjunct at 0 degrees of Aquarius on the winter solstice in December of 2020. It kicked off a 199-year period when Jupiter and Saturn will be making these 20-year conjunctions in the air signs of Aquarius, Gemini, or Libra. They've been making conjunctions in earth signs since the mid-1800s. And so this is a huge shift economically. Think about what the economy the world over has valued since the mid-1800s. It's been things of earth, things that we can touch and feel, things that come out of the earth. We're 5 years, not quite even, 5 years into a nearly 200-year period of where the economies the world over will value things of air, which are ideas, inventions, global community, fairness, and things that you can't touch, things of air. And so I applaud your community for already being there. And I'm here to give you support that you are absolutely in the right place and will be for the next 200 years. So for sure, the rest of your lifetime, maybe one or two more. To keep at it, to know that you are on the very, very leading cusp of economic transformation for the world.
Well, thank you very much, Susan, for these reassuring words. I have to admit to one thing. When I was younger, I used to read almost religiously my horoscopes. But recently I found out that some of these magazines were producing horoscopes just, out of the blue. Some people were not even engaging proper astrologers.
Mm-hmm.
They just had somebody who was supposed to draw some predict some future, love life future, and so on. However, here is the thing. I asked AI what is my future, and it was quite interesting because it basically told me, based on the time I was born and the place I was born, told me that one of the shifts would happen between the ages of 25 and 30. And one of my big shift was when I was 29. So it was right. It is talking about my future shift. So that's another one. So I'm just wondering, somebody who may not use your services, what they should ask ChatGPT or Gemini or DeepSeek, whatever AI they are using. What elements should we take into account to predict the stars signs for our future?
Well, interesting that your AI question came back with age 29, which is around the time of the first Saturn return for all of us. That's when Saturn comes back to where it was when you were born. And it means that Saturn, which has a 29-year cycle around the zodiac, has had the chance to visit every house in your chart, every planet in your chart, and then come back to where it started, to start again. And Saturn is life's teacher, lesson giver. And so Saturn moves through your chart and you're to learn lessons about its connection with the house that it's in and what that house topic is. And then the planets, wherever they are. And you're presented with lessons in your first 29 years about what to do and how to use that energy well. So probably not a big stretch for an AI question to say, oh, 29 is a big thing. Well, yeah, it's the Saturn return. And there's another one at 58. 59.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. That's another one that is in my draft here.
Yeah. And halfway at 42, we all get an opposition from Uranus, from where it was when we were born, which is connected with what we call the midlife crisis, where you say to yourself, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Should I be doing something different? Is this all there is? Why am I here? And it's kind of the halftime of life.
There you go.
The Uranus opposition.
That's fascinating. It also talks about Jupiter transits. Every 12 years, Jupiter returns to its natal position, bringing opportunities for growth, expansion, and success. However, how do we read that Jupiter? From the time of our birth or?
Yes. Yes. You find out where Jupiter is in your natal chart by house and by sign, and then you watch it come around. And there's a couple places to watch Jupiter in particular. From a career perspective. And one is when Jupiter transits your 10th house. However you define it, whatever house system you use is fine. But watch when Jupiter moves through your 10th. Transiting Jupiter moves through your 10th. It's a time when you get big applause, awards, recognition, great PR. You're really front and center in terms of career with Jupiter in the 10th. And then another thing to watch with Jupiter transits is when Jupiter goes through your 2nd house, which is about income. And so Jupiter's nature is to expand whatever it touches. And so it's lovely when Jupiter goes through your 2nd house of income. For me, I've had it through my 2nd house career-wise probably 2 or 3 times now. And in each instance, my income peaked for whatever I was doing at the moment when Jupiter moved through my 2nd.
So hold on a second. So what does it mean, 2nd house? Like when I buy a 2nd house, or
no, exactly? No. In the 2nd house of your horoscope chart.
Okay, all right. You're still talking a lot of unknown here. So is there a way we can develop these charts, or do you need an astrologer to?
Oh no, you can find them online. Lots of different places. Astro.com, I think, is the URL for a service that could do that for you easily, and probably lots of other places. You can do a search for how to create a horoscope chart, my horoscope chart based on my birth date and time and place.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that great tip and the website. So in practical terms, how should someone use astrology on a daily basis? Can we solely rely on the stars, or we should make our decisions aligned with stars?
Well, if you get to the point where you're kind of nerdy about it like I am, I still keep a printed calendar because I like to write things down. And each year I go through my calendar and I put my personal transits that are happening to my horoscope chart on my daily calendar, and I watch them. And certainly you can do this, with some sort of online service as well, I'm sure. But I watch my personal transits on a daily basis to know when I have good times, not good times, that sort of thing. But also, and anybody can do this, and I think it's helpful, just track when the moon is void of course. And that means that the moon is not making any kind of strong aspect to any of the other planets. So it feels untethered. It's not, your emotional state isn't functioning as well as it normally does. And no one's is, because a moon void, of course, affects everyone in the world. And that you can find on apps easily, lunar apps of some sort. But the moon void, of course, I keep in my calendar. And because it's said that things that occur during a moon void, of course, can fall apart. Nothing happens because from whatever stake you put in the ground when the moon was void. And so for me, I block my calendar when the moon is void. And personally, as a writer, I have found that when I try to do any kind of writing when the moon is void, of course, it's horrible. I have to go back and fix it and edit it really hard. And so now I just don't do it.
Great to know that tip. We've got a comment from Jane who says, hello ladies, another interesting topic to listen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Jane, feel free to ask a question if you have any. Tell us, what is your sign? I'm a Capricorn. What does it mean, Susan?
Oh, hurrah. I'm a Capricorn too.
There you go. So we can talk.
Yeah, we're old before our time. We get better as we get older because Saturn, the ruling planet of Capricorn, is about longevity and long-term responsibilities and being organized. From that point of view, you know, what you see in the general press about sun signs is pretty good. You know, you can sun sign traits are, I think we can all relate to those pretty well.
Absolutely. Although I have to tell you that when I was younger, I would always pay attention to my partners, what their star signs is, and all these, especially ladies magazines would tell me that I should avoid certain signs, and I ended up with 2 marriages with the signs that I should not be hooking up with. The first marriage collapsed, but the second marriage, as you know, is Patrick, and I'm quite happy. And even though he's a Libra, I'm quite happy in this one. Mm-hmm. So what does it tell us?
Well, Capricorn, Libra are both cardinal signs. And so, you both come into the relationship with a sense that we need to move forward with things. We need to create things. We need to do things. And so, that can be a bonding sort of endeavor. But
all right. No, well, enough of my private life here. Let's talk about the new power in the context of the stars. What does the future of power look like, and how can individuals and businesses position themselves to thrive in this new power era, or as you call it, air
economy? Well, I think you keep the focus on anything that is related to the air signs. And the short list, hang on, let me find it here. The short list. So anything in these arenas, for Aquarius, individual freedom, global community, inventions, artificial intelligence. For Gemini, communications, travel, the brain, and education. And Libra, cooperation, justice, beauty, and relationships. And, there are several other keywords for all of those signs that you could, once again, search if you were really into it. But the point is to remember that those are the big things in air and that they are intangible. And so to align yourself with companies and industries that are involved in those types of arenas. And it doesn't mean that they have to be, for example, say you were in the energy business and it's a fossil fuel based energy business at the moment. find the companies that are moving into green energy to make it more air oriented, or find work with a company that is actually doing wind power, which is about air, which is literally air and energy. Say you're in education and working with the book publisher. Okay, well, maybe it's not printed books anymore. Maybe find the people who are on the cutting edge of delivering education in new electronic or AI kind of ways. So it's not that the old things are, or old companies are invaluable. You just have to make sure you're aligned with what you do, what you learn, what you know is aligned with the most progressive information and companies and inputs that you can muster.
Well, that's really inspirational. I hope that those who are listening to us will pay close attention because it's so easy to talk about past events and have a vision and be wise on the things on the matters that happened. And we've all seen those CEOs who claw their way to the top, the ones who believe that power equals dominance. If that old model is fading, as you say, what does the new paradigm of leadership look like? What qualities and values will define the successful leaders of tomorrow, according to the stars?
Once again, I think related to the air signs. And let's start with Libra, which is about being fair, about supporting equality, about being pleasant. And I think all of those things females excel at, in particular. And so I think you've got a leg up right there in terms of operating within the air economy and what values will be supported and recognized. And then we move on to Gemini, just communications in general and being able to communicate easily, accurately. And then Aquarius, to know that ideas are important. Innovation is important. Intellectual property will be increasingly important. And also global community. Aquarius is a funny little sign. If you're an Aquarius sun sign, you can be seen as a rebel, as someone who's weird, kind of out there, not really, you're marching to your own drummer, not really aligned with what's going on and in the big scheme of things. Well, that's a plus in the air economy. We need new thinkers, new ideas, new inventions. And so go for it.
Excellent. Let's talk now about money. You've been in finance for quite some time, and money can be such a source of anxiety for so many people, and especially females who like to have that financial stability. How can we understand the astrological cycles to help us make better, wise, more aligned investment decisions?
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody would like to invest, what would be your advice to them?
Well, same deal. For individual investments, focus on companies that are aligned with the air signs in some way. Like I said, green energy, clean air, global community, artificial intelligence, technology of any kind is an air thing. And that's for investments and for companies that you might choose to work for. But on a stepping to a higher level, this is when I get back to the cycles of the economic planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus in particular. I watch the stock market with astrology and have studied it. and I've already talked about how the Dow moves against this Saturn-Uranus cycle, and that is coming to another conjunction in 2032, which if we get to 2032 without having a Great Depression, that would take away nearly all of the stock market gains of the last 40 years, then the third cycle will have done what the previous two did, which was that the price of the U.S. stock market, as measured by the Dow Jones Industrial Average, is lowest for the next 45 years at the beginning of the Saturn-Uranus 45-year cycle. And it peaks into when Saturn and Uranus make hard aspects, which are 90 degrees or 180. And that's been pretty consistent through the years. And so that's every 10 years, roughly, from the time of their conjunction. You can expect a big high in the stock market. Then it sets back, often substantially, only to rally again. And the hardest part is the section we're in right now, the last 25% of the cycle. And that wasn't consistent in the first two, and we're living through the third right now. So we'll see. But that's from a Saturn-Uranus perspective. Jupiter-Saturn and Jupiter-Uranus both are in an upswing that I think I'm expecting the stock market to peak in 2030, when Jupiter is opposite Saturn and Jupiter also is opposite Uranus. Those are two signatures on a shorter term basis that are can be fairly reliable in terms of watching for a peak in the stock market. Once again, how we get there from here over the next 5 years, not really sure. It could be bumpy. It could be easy. It's a difficult time to evaluate. But those are big picture things. So generally, I'm looking for a rally into 2030 and then a collapse into 2032.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of investing and stock markets, we have IPOVIT in Patrick's opinion. My husband just wanted to add, I could go even further than quite happy with the marriage to Beata. Fabulous to see you on PhD, Susan. Looking great, ladies. Fascinating show. Thank you so much, Patrick, for your comment. So, Susan, you're asking us to trust something that feels intangible, something beyond our rational mind, and even go even further with our imagination for the next year. What would you say to those who are afraid to surrender control, to let go of their preconceived notions, and to embrace the possibility that there is a greater force at play in their lives?
Well, I know it's hard to do. It's hard to make the big leap. But I just want to encourage you and your community to know that the universe is behind you. You're working in a field in technology that is valuable and will only become more increasingly valuable. And the skill sets that you bring as females that are related to the sign of Libra, I think will be increasingly valuable. But beyond that, I know that's scary. And I will maybe only add to the scariness of it to say that this air economy that I talk about, we're only just 4 years and a little bit into a 200-year period. And I'm a baseball fan. If you have listeners who understand U.S. baseball, and it's played in 9 innings, and each team gets, for sake of argument, 3 batters per inning. And in that regard, the air economy is still the top of the first inning with only the second person out of 54 to come to the plate. So we're very, very early. So we are all on the extreme cutting edge of moving our economy into things of air. So go back and think about what people were doing in the 1840s, who were starting the Industrial Revolution, creating machines that would do work and make life easier for people. We're doing the same thing, just in a different way.
We are doing the best we can. We have to let go of the fear. But there are some things you mentioned. Communication. One of the skills that helps females with their career progress. What are other soft skills? Like let's nail down 3 top soft skills that every career-driven woman should have to be ready to align that power with their stars.
Well, I think there's 3 important ones. And the first is listening. Listen to your boss, listen to the people that you work with and report to, and who report to you, and listen to your customers. Listening is a great skill. You can't always be talking. You have to be able to listen and hear in order to make adjustment. The second, I think, is to have human compassion. Certainly an air sort of thing. And particularly compassion to the people you work with and the people who report to you. We're all human beings. We aren't here to just do nothing but work. We're here to make a difference. We're here to live a life that we are intended to live. And hopefully our work supports that. But life comes first and work is there to support life, not the other way around. And third, I think simply be pleasant, be Libra-like. There's no need to yell, raise voices, demean anyone. You can be authoritative in a firm kind of tone and voice without having to stoop to a more negative communication style.
Work is to support life, not the other way around. That's number 1 advice from Susan. I love that. None of us are able to achieve success without some help from others. Is there any person that you're really grateful to who helped you with your career?
Well, I already mentioned one, my astrologer here in Chicago, who, alerted me that it was time to do something new if I so chose. But early on, I'd say it was my dad. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, and we raised corn and cattle. And my dad would come in for lunch every day in the summertime when we were home to make lunch, and would want to turn the TV channel from whatever soap opera we might have been watching to the news so he could see what the price of corn was. And I'm like, really? The price of corn? It changes every day. How is it possible? And so anyway, I just got really interested in what makes prices move because of that. And I'm still fascinated by what makes prices move. And so I spent my entire day job career in a business that watches prices move. And now I'm still doing it, trying to figure that out with astrology.
One thing that moves people is also quotation, and here is a great quotation by Eleanor Roosevelt, who said, "Women are like tea bags. You never know their true strength until you put them in hot water." So in life, how are you in hot water, Susan? How are you brewing?
Well, it's already happened a couple of times. And I've lost a couple of jobs, not by my choice. And the first time, it compelled me to go out on my own, and I wrote my first book in the late 90s. And the second time, my company went bankrupt, and same deal. It propelled me into doing what I'm doing now. I had time then to become the financial astrologer that I wanted to become. And I wrote my second book. So I think, like they say, bloom where you're planted. I was kicked out of jobs and decided to take the opportunity to do something different.
Speaking of books, what is the number one book that you wish you read before you started career?
Well, it just came out a couple of years ago, but I love this book called Everyday Finance. Is that the right?
Finance for the People.
Finance for the People. Finance for the People by Paco de Leon. She is from California and has a podcast called Weird Finance that I was on for a few times in 2023. But she comes from a financial services background. And this book I really wish I would have had it when I was in my 20s. She explains how the financial services system works, the instruments that are available, how to set up your own personal finances in a way that will support you throughout your career and beyond. And just really valuable in terms of providing a roadmap for how to get your finances in order, particularly in your 20s. And just as an aside, not necessarily something in her book, but for me, I wish I would have adhered to the very simple advice: save 10% of every paycheck. Did I really need the extra pair of shoes? Probably not.
Well, that's a great inspiration. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we can reach out to Paco de Leon and invite her to our show. Now, let's imagine that you could meet any person in the world for a private breakfast anywhere in the world. Who would you invite, and where would you go to have this special meeting?
I would invite Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, to people in the United States who just recently left his post as Secretary of Transportation with the U.S. government. And we would go to Ann Sather's in Chicago, which is a fabulous place for coffee and cinnamon rolls and breakfast. My favorite cinnamon rolls outside of my mother's. I would like to talk to Pete. One, I like Pete because I think he exemplifies probably all aspects of what I'm talking about in terms of being connected with the air economy. He is, and I have my notes here. One, I think he's smart. He's articulate. He speaks several languages. That's very Gemini. He's interested in promoting equality and justice, which is Libra-oriented. And he's a gay man who thinks outside the box for the benefit of the global community, which is Aquarius. And so I think he's kind of the poster child for how to operate in the air economy. And I would just love to know what he sees for the future, because I think people like him and others like him, even if they're haven't got all three boxes checked, we all can contribute in some way in this air economy vision. How does he see the world evolving?
And that would be a very wholesome moment, because we were established in Malta, and Pete Buttigieg has Maltese heritage in his blood.
Oh, really?
So there you go. What an inspiration. Now, can you please give us your life lesson quote, and how did it change you?
My life lesson quote is, be who you are and own your power. And I think I learned that when I was the marketing director at a retail brokerage firm in the futures business. And I had several people, a dozen people reporting to me. And I came to it after having been self-employed for several years. And I thought long and hard about whether I really wanted to go back into the corporate world or not. And I thought, well, why not? We'll give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to doing what I was doing. No big deal. I mean, and maybe it takes a little bit of life experience to get to that point. But I really went into that position with just, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I operate. And I have an opinion. I figure you didn't hire me unless you wanted to hear my opinion. So I'm going to tell you. And if you don't like any of that, well, fine, fire me. I'll go back. I'll do something different. It's okay. And it really gave me a sense of empowerment in terms of just being who I am, doing what I do, and being willing to live with the consequences. And I was there for 11 years. It was no big deal. But, I came, you just come into it with a different, a different vibe of, okay, well, this is what it is.
Well, you've done a couple of pivots, and many of my viewers are at the crossroads in their careers. They are wondering, am I on the right path? Am I living my purpose? And how can they use astrological insights to align their skills and passions and not to be afraid?
Well, I think for starters, you can study the houses in your chart, the second house, the sixth house, and the 10th house. So you get your horoscope chart and the circle of it and the picture of it. And the second house is how you earn a living, and the skills that you have to earn a living. And the sixth house is the kind of work environment that you prefer. And the 10th house is how you are recognized publicly. And typically, when we're working in a career, that's seen as what kind of career recognition you are striving for and will be known for. And so study your horoscope chart, look at the second house, the sixth house, and the 10th house, and look at the signs on the cusps of those houses, the planets that rule them, the planets that are in them. And they will give you clues about what path to be on. And what kind of environment you prefer, what your goals are in life, and particularly in career, and what to be known for. And you can do that on your own by scoping out any, like an online analysis. Once again, probably at astro.com, I think is the URL. Or work with an astrologer to help with that. And probably any astrologer would be able to help you through second house, sixth house, 10th house sorts of things, as well as North Node, where your North Node is, which is about life purpose.
Thank you, Susan, for this great insight into the future and for sharing your experiences with us today. Your work is really inspiring. We are living here today feeling inspired and ready to make a decision based on stars alignment. And that's it from episode 173 with our guest, Susan Guido. To stay updated and ensure you never miss Positivity Hack Delivered, follow notifications, turn on notifications, and be our supporter. Next week, we are going to be joined by Priska Mwana. She's going to talk about her experience in Malawi. Thank you so much for our lovely audience, Kenton, Jane, IPO Fit. Thank you for your insights. As always, our positivity quote comes from Positive Thinking Only and goes, look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look harder, if you have to reach for the stars. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. As Maya Angelou says, today is your day to hug the future, hug the stars, hug the positivity you want. Thank you.
Thank you.